Welcome back, everybody, to the Who's Accountable podcast. My name is Mahaya Abdul Kawi. I'm the creator and the host of this platform. I am also, as well, the founder and a representative of the Accountability Party for Human Rights. We are a political vanguard organization whose main mission it is to provide services and resources for the oppressed working class communities across this country. And this platform is a way for the members of the party, of the organization, to talk about people and events that directly affect the working class. And this platform is a way for us to expose and to talk about um, these people and events, and maybe if they had a little bit more accountability, they would have had a better outcome for themselves and all parties involved. So I would like to thank those who have been tuning in every video, and for those who are new, I would like to thank you for joining in and taking part of this cause and this mission. So with that being out of the way, what I would like to start with for today is I would like to, um, if anybody that has seen previous videos know, I like to combat corporate America as much as I can whenever I can, because corporate America is the new upper elite. Corporate America is the puppet behind is the puppeteer behind the puppet that is capitalism. That directly affects all of our lives, as we are all caught up in the strings of this puppetry. So for this one, I would like to talk about a recent development that has come out recently in the past week, and it has something to do with uh, the job market. Um, Ever since things have been reopening across the country, states and cities, as we start to reopen up businesses and places, sporting events, places of worship, and you know uh, things like that. It was predicted from Wall Street to the White House. Um, there was a consensus that once we have everything open, once enough people get vaccines, we will have a lot of people who would go back to the workplace. We would have waves of people coming back. April of last year, we lost about 130.2 million jobs. In terms of people at those jobs, we lost that much. And it was predicted following a year later that we would see, if not the whole recovery, most of the recovery in terms of people going back to the workplace. Recent study, it's been an official year, and come to find out, they were all wrong. The White House, Wall Street, these corporals across the country who firmly believed that they had all the incentive and all the attraction to bring people back into the workplace. And it wasn't 100 million something, or let alone a million. Right here, it shows that it's only went up to 266,000. That's the recovery of where we're at. So how are these people responding? They're trying to call it a labor shortage, because it is a labor shortage, but it's not what they're trying to perceive it as. Their main, what they're mostly blaming it on is the generous unemployment payments that people have been getting, quote unquote, on the word generous. It's not like these are just some handouts. First of all, unemployment money comes from our tax money. So if anything, we're getting our money back to us. Two, is only a small percentage, and I'm talking like small as in compared to 330 million people. A small percentage out of that are abusing the unemployment system. It's not everybody. A small percentage is abusing it. You have the most of people who are actually using it as a lifeline, because for them it is a lifeline, contrary to what these corporals may perceive the people as to be, lazy or whatever they can come up with in their head about where we're at and why we're not taking their jobs. Um, People really need these extra benefits on top of what their state is providing them. It has nothing to do with them being lazy. And I like what the Washington Post is calling it, although the Washington Post is corrupt with Jeff Bezos paraphernalia all over him. I like what they call it. Um, it is not a labor shortage. It's not a work shortage. It's a great reassessment of work in America. And I think that right there is a moment, like that headline in itself should should trigger a string of questions for anybody that reads it, for those who are on the outside looking in, or for those who are just in the inside, people who are workers. Because we can't just assume that everybody, because that's the same assumption of people, uh that's the same assumption all that a lot of politicians, specifically Republicans, try to have when it comes to people who are on welfare and things like that. They assume that everybody who is on welfare is just lazy people that don't want to get back into the workspace. And yes, you can always say there is those who do take advantage of that. You can always apply that to any fucking situation. Yes, there's killers out in the world, no, but does that mean every single person is a fucking killer? No, it is not. You can't move forward in future decisions based off of a small percentage of things, because in the mass majority that is not the case. And if it was the case, the world would look very different. So in cases like this, you finally have a moment where the working class are finally questioning capitalism. Finally. And I say finally because since the 70s, when Uncle Sam started started going full time into manipulating every aspect of our lives, from uh, what we consume to where we live to what schools we go to who we interact. You slowly, from the 70s moving forward to the present, you found us slowly becoming from people to numbers. And it wasn't even slowly, it happened, in the span of 40 years. So we finally have people of the current generation and those who are from the previous ones who may not have seen it because in their time it wasn't as apparent, but with how much manipulation happens right now, I am excited to see many people across the board finally start to question where these companies' intentions lie. People are starting to see that these companies don't have their back. For the first time, probably in a lot of people's lives, they had a little excess of money where they were able to spoil themselves, as well as save for themselves, take care of their family, put it towards school debt, hospital debt, whatever they may have had. It is finally a moment where they were able to step outside of the you have to work every day, every week, and I'll get this check that's probably gonna be gone by the next week. Finally, out of that bubble, and a point where they can step back and breathe and just question these people who that have them doing jobs where they're getting paid low in restaurants and a lot of service, um, retail, uh, provider, healthcare providing. It's across many fields of people who lost their jobs, and not even those who were considered essential workers. They were forced to go to work every day and still have to question their jobs. So you have a huge collection of people who were working throughout the pandemic, and those who got laid off. And that is a huge number because there was a lot of essential and there was a lot of people who lost their jobs. And yet, these corporations can't appease to both audiences. These corporations can't give enough incentive. Why? Because they're focused on keeping their profit. They can't hold themselves accountable to the fact that they treated their workers shitty for years. And you find this in any industry: the food, the customer service and retail. You find it in uh, uh, um, medical and construction. There's no care for those at the bottom, and those are just examples of just industry I could think of in my head. I'm sorry, it's a little early, but just across the field, and you see how that's affecting even the schools and parents letting their kids go back, because now we had a moment where since a long time kids had to step up maybe and get jobs, or parents had to rearrange their schedules to work from home. It's we have a moment where you have those who are just finally in a position to say to themselves, yo, I want to try this business out. I want to be an entrepreneur. Maybe I can do my work from home. I don't have to travel and, put my life in danger if I take public transportation, or I don't have to worry about catching not just COVID, but the fucking cold, the flu, whatever other diseases are out there. I don't have to catch that from the comfort of my home and work. You know, my job doesn't require me to be there. Whatever thought process is happening on the last year changed everybody's perspective. It's not just the simple fact that unemployment is being generous, because you're reducing people's, you're not validating where people are currently standing right now by reducing it to, oh, they're being bought out by money, because then your approach as as a corporation is going to solely be focused on the money. It's not going to be focused on anything for their betterment. You know, there's this. I know this is kind of like straining it off, but to me, this is where I consider it, because it is the corporations who are pissed off at the states and at the state power and the federal power, in terms of they want politicians to bend over backwards to their needs of having people return to the work office. Instead of politicians putting the people first, politicians are now starting to focus on what the corporations want and are pushing people to get off of, this unemployment, or the eviction uh, eviction ban and rent help and stuff like that. It's like these are things that politicians should be doing for the people, because that's their job. Yet we have corporations who aren't getting their slave labor back, pretty much, and are getting pissed off about it. And the fact that they're getting pissed off, that people are now finally questioning them, shows where these people lie at. These people who were greedy, who only put themselves first, who only think of themselves, and they want us to put their company before our family and before our livelihood. It doesn't make sense, nor is it going to ever happen, you know? Um, but I want to read a little bit of this article, because they compare corporations to fascism, which I think applies to this conversation, what we're talking about, and I'll connect it. Uh, So they start off by saying there's been a lot of talk lately about fascism, generally in the context of Republicans denying people their right to vote, or Donald Trump sending an armed mob to murder 5 people at the U.S. Capitol to try to install him as America's first strongman dictator. A really side footnote: I don't really agree with that second half of that statement. Well, I mean, not that I don't agree. I don't really fuel the flames of that notion. Yeah, Trump had his speech, but it's already proven that there was going to be some type of riot that day on Capitol Hill, and Trump is it? Yeah, he's. We need to stop putting him on a pedestal. Like, I know his presence brought in the whole fascism conversation, but if anybody knows what fascism really truly is, he doesn't really fit that. He's like a very kid version of what fascism could be. Um, But to continue, indeed, author, author, Authoritarian governance is a major aspect of fascism, but there's another piece to the puzzle, and it's playing out right now across America and getting almost no coverage whatsoever. It's when giant corporations are able to control government and thus stop things like a national healthcare system, rational gun control laws, free college, or even the tiniest tax on carbon. When they're able to push through criminal justice reform that makes it nearly impossible to prosecute corporate CEOs, when their companies kill workers, consumers, or even poison entire communities. It's when they don't. It's when they don't do it through presenting strong and defendable ideas in the public realm and before Congress, but by pouring cash into the pockets of individual politicians and their parties. It's when corporations and the very rich have seized control of the political process through the use of their considerable economic power after having used that power to change laws so they can legally buy politicians. When government gives corporations this core power to write laws, in exchange, corporations facilitate government power to suppress, dissent, and marginalize non-fascist political parties. A country finds itself on the edge of classical fascism. The word fascism comes from the Roman fascis, a bundle of sticks with a rope around it, typically adorned with a hatchet on the top. There's one carved into the podium in the United States Senate, an homage to the ancient Roman Republic, which originated it and partly inspired our Constitution. The idea is that a single stick can easily be broken, but a bundle of sticks is almost impossible to break. Similarly, a single state may be vulnerable, but a collection of states united together is unbreakable. But the Roman fasces, although that symbol was used throughout history as a symbol of the ancient Roman Republic, took on a completely different meaning in the late 1920s when Italian dictator Benito Mussolini derived it from the word fascism. Yet to him, fascism meant something quite different than just the strength of a united country. It meant the literal merger of corporate and state interests, ultimately facilitating a strongman authoritarian government. Corporations and the government are becoming inter inter uh, interpenetrated and intertwined, ruling the country together with a tough guy in charge. The tough guy, or authoritarian or authoritarian leader, would then shower his own beneficence on the corporations that funded his political power. So, with all that being said, what to take away from it is that in a true fascist state, it is when you have corporations, whether it's Silicon Valley, Wall Street, pharma, the gas, whatever corporation, they're all in the same. They're all in the same evil bubble. And then you have the military, you have the Pentagon, you have the brass, and then you have Uncle Sam, literally all together. And instead of there being a hierarchy and Uncle Sam kind of dictating the road for the other two, what we have now is they're one entity, while one or two, which I said it in the previous video, corporals and the Pentagon are doing most of the talking. You have the corporals again controlling the domestic policy, and the military controlling the foreign policy, and the people just have to kind of go with whatever these two parties decide. And I don't even think Uncle Sam, the politicians, I don't think they know what the fuck is going on half the time. They just do whatever comes up on their desk that morning, you know. So we live in a true fascist state where these corporations get mad at people for saying, I'm done with your job. I want to create a new market for myself and live a new lifestyle. I want to push what was thought before. And you find this all across all generations between millennials.
I've got some reminders for Shiva.
When you have millennials, when you have the baby boomers, when you have Gen Z, the TikTok generation who is now starting to work, when you have Gen X, when you have all 40 generations all at once saying, yo, we're tired of this shit, then you have something real that truly fears the upper elite. And that right there is called unification of the working class. And if you don't believe that that's the current case, we have right here on Fox Business News. Biden yesterday he had, I believe, a conference talking about the recent job announcement and with the reported jobs and whatnot. And he says that Americans must accept a job or lose unemployment benefits. And this comes after disappointing news. Sorry to disappoint. He says that his administration is taking steps that will make it easier for employers to hire more workers. But what can you do, bro? Like, what can you possibly do that's going to incentivize people to come back? That's nothing to do with just, oh yeah, we're gonna give you $1 raise, $2 raise. Fam, give me healthcare. Help me raise my fucking family, bro. Help me be able to save. Help me be able to have the shared opportunity as somebody else. Allow me to rise up in a company. Give me experience instead of seeing me as a number, as a replaceable thing for a season, or shit worse than that. Please don't drain me for the rest of my life. Only to come to find out by the time I get 70, I can't retire because you and the laws you kept passing while I was working for you restricted what the fuck I was able to do. So, you know what, Biden? Fuck you and you helping these companies, because when we do have that little burst in this bubble of normalcy, because it is coming, we're trying to hold on to this idea, that because things are reopening or we're going back to a normal, as if this is not gonna pop. Like, this is just a calm before the storm, and the storm being the fallout. The pandemic was its own storm, but there's going to be a storm of when all the eviction bans are done, when unemployment stops, when there's still violence in the street, there's still mistrust, there's still polarization. It's you're fueling the fire. You can't even hold yourself accountable to say what we're doing. You can't even hold yourself accountable to the fact that you claim to be a working man, but are clearly choosing the corporations. And yeah, he says here, he says that he understands that people need it and that it helps. But fam, if that was the case, then you would make it so that these corporations cannot lobby your into your territory of DC. You would keep them out and allow their opinions to shut the fuck up and keep doing what you're doing, which is allow people to ride this out until September. And if you want to truly help people, because you're not helping people, you're helping, you hear me say right here, you want to help employers, you don't want to help workers. Help the workers first. So the workers make up a company, not the other way around. So make sure to know that they have something. Because if not, if you take this approach, you're only feeding into, like, your presidency is only going to feed into the fascism that is currently controlling American politics. And if you want to go down for that, instead of this whole FDR platform you're striving to, then fam, get your head out of these corporals' ass and do something. It's, I think we are in a moment where the people are finally tired, and we have a work revolution that is going to keep churning. It's going to keep churning, and I feel like our identity is going to grow more from what has happened. And the fact that we are separating our identity from what capitalism wants our identity to be, you're going to find more people on the path to being whole, to being evolved, and that will play into their communities. And I can only say, as those people start to rise up and start to see more and start to question more, just know that you're not alone, and that we are a class together. We're a working class. And it takes all of us to rise up out of that oppressed mentality that capitalism wants us, clearly, they want us to go back into. They want us to stop caring about our individual, our collective needs, and just focus on themselves. So inshallah, this this labor shortage becomes a workers' revolution. And what we see long term is a true revolution for the working class people of this company. I mean, of this country. Inshallah.